Welcome to Unit 3. So this lesson, as you can see, is all about quadrilaterals and coordinate geometry. Now the first definition you'll need to write down is a quadrilateral. So make sure you're writing that down in your notebook. Now quadrilateral doesn't just have four sides, there are very specific types of sides. So look at these four shapes and tell me, which one does not belong? Now hopefully you're saying this second picture doesn't belong and you'd be correct. So all quadrilaterals have to have four straight sides, and if you can see that that shape has a rounded edge and it doesn't count. So it is not a quadrilateral. Go ahead and take a few minutes, pause the video, and write down this table. As soon as you're finished, go ahead and resume the video and we'll move on. You'll need it for tomorrow, by the way. All right, so there are several things that you need to know about a kite. The first one is that it has a line, one line actually, of reflectional symmetry. So if you were to cut it the way I just cut it, if you were to fold over the top triangle on top of the bottom triangle, you would notice it fits exactly on top of itself. The next thing is if I connect two other vertices, and this, by the way, is a diagonal, so is this. Remember, a diagonal is where it connects two vertices that are not consecutive. Suddenly, you have two isosceles triangles. So if you notice on the right side, there's an isosceles triangle. On the left side, there's an isosceles triangle. So take a moment, draw this picture, and show that these two are congruent sides, and these two are congruent sides within those two isosceles triangles. Now, there are two pairs of congruent consecutive sides. Remember, congruent, the same, and then consecutive, they're right next to each other. So here's one pair of congruent consecutive sides. Here's another pair of congruent consecutive sides. Now, the two angles between each pair of congruent sides of a kite are called the vertex angles. So if you wanted to make sure you're writing that down, and not just if you want to, you should write it down anyway. So here is, and bear with me because this is the first time I've done a video, so I'm trying to get the arrow to be where I want it to go. Here are the two sets, or two pair vertex angles. The other two are non-vertex angles, so here's a non-vertex, here's a non-vertex angle. And those two non-vertex angles are always going to be congruent. So if this is 120 degrees, this would be 120. If this is 95, this would be 95. The next thing you need to know is that if you were to draw both of the diagonals, they end up crossing each other perpendicularly. Okay, so you can see there's a 90-degree angle, here's a 90 degree, 90 degree, 90 degree. And then the other thing is it bisects it, so it cuts that line in half. And hopefully that would make sense, because if you see that line of symmetry, if you were to fold that triangle over, it should fit exactly on top of itself. So hopefully you can see that this line, or line segment, is exactly equal to this line segment. Now you're going to learn more and discover more tomorrow, but here are just a few of the properties. Now as far as the definition of a trapezoid goes, you have one set of parallel lines. Now that does not mean that they're exactly the same length. So when you have the arrows that denote that they are parallel, again, if you look at this, hopefully you can see the top and the bottom are not equal. But we do call them the bases. And it doesn't matter, if you were to rotate this, the sides that are parallel would still become, or would still be, the bases. We call the base angles, so for this bottom, here are the two pairs of base angles for that bottom. And then the top, here are the two base angles for that base. Now you're going to use that information tomorrow to discover things about a trapezoid, but you need to have that base information. So make sure that you're writing that down, drawing the symbols showing that they are parallel, and that which ones are base angles, drawing the arrows, whatever you need, so that you remember, so that tomorrow when you come into class, you'll be set and ready to take off. All right, so if you have any questions, make sure that you're coming tomorrow, asking your teacher. We're glad to help you out. And that's the end for today. So if you haven't written down the table, make sure that you go back. That's right. Go back and write it down. We know who you are. Write it down. All right, so thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.